Okay, so it's interesting because this chapter, chapter 16, is really focusing on the worship of the Benoni and his oneness with God. And we were speaking about his oneness not just with feelings and thoughts, but now we're transitioning to his oneness with action, which is really the most important realm also, because you can feel all you want or you can think all you want, but if you don't do that which you need to do, then your feelings and your thoughts don't mean much. And the feelings, the actions sometimes come with feelings, and sometimes, and that's in many ways the way to work on ourselves too. Sometimes they come without feelings. And when you're not in the mood, when you don't feel like doing what's right, and you still do it. And when we align our actions with God, we're actually aligning our most dominant part of ourselves, because actions is what defines us, as we've often said. So that's been the focus here in the past few paragraphs, but I suggest let's continue exactly where we left off, as you suggested here. Margot, page 71, third paragraph from the top. Then this understanding. This understanding of shifting from, this is what this is relating to, right? Of shifting from thought and feeling to action. Then this understanding. Does anyone want to read?
I'll read if nobody else wants
Go
to.
for it, Andrea. Thank
Okay,
you.
sure. Then this understanding is clothed in the act, speech, and thought of the Torah and its commandments, providing for them, as it were, intelligence, vitality. This mode of the understanding arouses the soul. True, it is not a breathtaking direct flame that ascends by itself, but it is an awakening in the sense that it impels and enlivens one's activities.
Right. The understanding that sometimes you just have to do what you have to do, and that will, in and of itself, awaken the heart. It's one of the great principles laid out by many Jewish sages, including Maimonides too, says that it's the action that must arouse the heart. And we've spoken about this before. Not that we can't wait for the heart to be in the right place and then act upon it. Sometimes it doesn't come. Or sometimes it's very elusive or even fluctuating. But when we do and do and do, eventually our feelings align with our actions. There's a great story about the author of this book, of the Tanya, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, who once had to raise funds for, I think, a bride and a groom who didn't have the funds to get married. So he went to a very wealthy man in his village, but this wealthy man was also known as a miser. And the people that he went with told him, "You're wasting your time. Just go somewhere else. He won't give you a dime." Nonetheless, he goes, knocks on the door. This man opens the door and he says, "I'm here to raise funds for a bride and a groom." And he says, "You know me, I don't give anything." He says, "Please, whatever you have, just give me something." And this wealthy man takes a little coin that was worth much and he throws it at the rabbi's direction. He says, "Okay, now you can leave my house." The rabbi goes on to say, "Thank you so much. That really means a lot. This charity will certainly help." And the man, slowly but surely, is moved. So he throws him another dime, and he throws him another dime, and the story continues on until he eventually gave him the full sum. The people with the rabbi, when they left, they said, "We don't believe it. This guy never gave any charity. How do you explain this?" And Alter Rebbe, again, the author of the Tanya, says, "Well, that's one of the great principles of Judaism. You just have to allow the person to do. Once he does, then his feelings will start aligning themselves. And then he'll do again, and he'll do again, as you just saw." So he threw that dime, he did an action. It was a dime, it was nothing, but it was still an action. And slowly but surely his feelings started to change. And eventually he gave the whole sum. So that's really the idea here, that sometimes we're not completely aligned, but that doesn't matter. Still do. And this understanding is really what provides, as he says here, the arouses of the soul. Okay, let's continue. But again, I welcome comments, ideas. So anything that any one of you wants to say, please say it. Okay.
And wings wherewith to soar on high. It is the same as if he practiced them with real fear and love as revealed in his heart. As stated in Tikkunei Zohar, Torah without awe and love of God does not rise on high. And as the author will explain, love and awe are the two wings that elevate Torah study and the commandments, Although this individual does not attain love and awe on the emotional plane, with a desire, fervor, and passion that are felt in the heart and soul thirsting for God by reason of the glowing embers of love in his heart, as mentioned above.
Right. Continue. He nevertheless,
He
just want to
nevertheless
interrupt.
reaches a conceptual love and awe as an abstract intellectual experience. This is not a fierce sensation, but still the feeling, albeit ill defined, and halfway between genuine love and pure intellectual reckoning, that is cognizant of the need of love. But because of intention in this, it is actual implementation. It is far from abstract and irrelevant. His thinking is a reality that becomes a part of his life, an awareness that serving God with love and awe is fitting, and his feeling finds complete expression with diligence and attention to detail, as though his love of God were fully revealed in his heart.
Right. So there's this beautiful metaphor in Kabbalistic thought that in order to connect with God, to ascend to God, so to speak, to become one with God, we need wings, just as a bird maybe needs wings to fly. And those wings are called love and awe. The right wing is called love, or Reuta Diliba. It's also called the love of the heart. And the other one is called fear. Now, fear is a bad translation. It's really awe, um, or this sense of tremendous reverence that I have towards the God that I'm attaching myself to. Um, so you have these two wings that really elevate the person, just as emotions, healthy emotions, particularly those two emotions, can elevate any type of experience, especially relationships. When I have both love and respect, when I have the sense of strong bond, but also at the same time, the sense of strong reverence, so that I don't take the relationship for granted, so that I don't become too what's the word? Too
Complacent.
disrespectful of the relationship, or complacent is another good
Yeah,
word. That's
yeah.
correct. So you need those two wings in order to truly ascend. But again, putting this in the context of this idea, it's interesting to note that it's the actions that will give birth to those wings and will almost activate those wings. It's almost like, I don't know if you've ever seen a bird flying for the first time, coming out of his nest for the first time. The bird doesn't know that he knows how to fly because he's never flown before. He just has to push himself out of the nest, and all of a sudden he discovers that there's wings, and that's how he starts to fly. Many times that's the case with the human being, that we're not in the mood. Oh, it's not something I feel like doing right now. But you push yourself out of the nest, you focus on action, and all of a sudden you realize, gosh, I have these wings, I have these emotions, I have this love and this fear, or this reverence. And it enables me now to ascend more and more, almost like this person in the story that eventually gave the full sum. He finally discovered that he had wings. And that is the power of action. It activates those wings. Now, to go back to the wings a little bit, it's interesting because the wings have to be balanced. You can't fly with just one wing. You have to have love, but you also have to have reverence. And it's interesting because we may have spoken about this, but in relationships, it's very much the case that if I just have love, then with my love, I can be number one, very selfish. Love is very selfish. And at the same time, it can be very suffocating. Um, Very often you see relationships like that. There's a lot of love, but there's zero respect. And then love doesn't enable the other person to be, doesn't feel respected. Sometimes out of love, you want to change the person. You say to them, "Oh, well, you should be, dressing this way. You should be brushing your teeth this way. You should be sleeping you should be eating this way. You should be eating this, not that." Out of love, because you care for the person. That you think that's the right way. So out of love, you say it to the person. But the problem with that is that you don't really allow the person to be him or her, to fully be, because that love is suffocating and that love is very selfish. So you need respect. You need the other wing. You need to say, well, now I'm keeping my distance. Now I'm allowing the other person to just be. I recognize that he has differences and I respect them. I won't try to change them, even though I love them and I think that he should be eating this way, not that. But still, I'm going to respect it. That's where reverence comes in. One wing doesn't fly. You need both wings for a relationship to fly. Same with God. Sometimes, yes, we are completely madly in love with God, and we can do whatever God wants us to do, and we know what God wants us to do, and we're in this mode of just complete ecstasy. But sometimes we're not in the mood. And sometimes we say, well, right now it's not, I need some downtime, as people say. Well, that's when you have to exercise that respect. You don't have the love, but still respect what God told you to do, so you do it. And eventually, yes, the love will come. But you need both. Without both, doesn't fly. Just doesn't
Rabbi,
fly. Yes.
you remind me of another story about the miser.
Yes, please.
The town people hated this man who was very wealthy because he never donated to
Mm,
any of the charitable causes.
yeah.
And then when he died, all of a sudden, the charities that were getting anonymous funding, the funding stopped. And then they realized he was the one who was funding all these charities.
Right. And maybe if they'd exercised more respect than trying to love, then they would have discovered that. But that's true. In fact, if you go to Krakow, Poland today, you'll realize that there are two graves outside of the Jewish cemetery. One is the rabbi's grave, Rabbi Yom Tov Ehrlich, and the other one is this holy miser. And the reason is because they try to give him a last chance before he died, saying, hey, you're not going to go and die, go to heaven with your money. Why don't you give something? He said, no. So he said, the rabbi said on behalf of the congregation, if you don't give tzedakah, this is your last opportunity, then we'll have to bury you outside of the Jewish cemetery. He said, fine. And that's what they did. And then they realized that he was giving money anonymously to the poor because that Friday, all of a sudden, all these poor people showed up to the rabbi's door. And the rabbi said, where were you until now? And they said, well, I don't know. We got an envelope under our door every Friday to buy food for Shabbat. And this Friday, we didn't get anything. The rabbi investigated a little bit and he found out that it was indeed this man that they had buried outside of the cemetery, Yosele. So the rabbi called the entire congregation that Shabbat, asked them to come to shul, and he said, we have to ask for forgiveness from Yosele. I ask everyone to join me in the cemetery and we'll ask for forgiveness at his tombstone, which they did. And at that ceremony, the rabbi said that because of what I did, asking to bury him outside of the cemetery, I asked that when I die, you bury me next to him. So today you go to Krakow, Poland, and you'll find these two graves outside of the cemetery because of this story. Powerful, but it points to the same point that love and respect also include understanding and sometimes just respecting because I don't understand. Recognizing that maybe someone is much more than what I think he is, and therefore I have to respect. It's interesting because if you think about this, just to go a little deeper into this, love really relates to that which we have in common with the other. So I love good food, you love good food, let's go to a good restaurant. I love sports, you love sport, let's go to a good sports game or whatever it is. Respect really relates to that which we do not have in common with the other. That's why I have to respect. I can't love because I don't understand it. So I have to respect. So you like the color pink, I like the color blue. You like the shape square, I like the shape. I can't understand why you like those shapes and those colors or whatever it may be, because I come from a completely different standpoint, but I still respect it. So respect relates to that which we do not have in common. That's why the Talmud often says, the Talmud, especially one place, it says that one should love his spouse like he loves himself, but he should respect his spouse more than he respects himself. Respect is even more important than love. And in many ways, you see that's just like the story. Maybe you should respect this man. Maybe you don't see the full picture. Maybe you don't understand that which could be understood if you had a grander vision. And it's true with God, going back to putting this in the context of the Tanya right here. Sometimes, yes, I'm in love. And then it's easy to worship God. That right wing is functioning beautifully. But what about when, again, I don't feel like it, or I can't understand God, or I'm upset at God, as we can be and should be sometimes? What about that? If I still respect and I say, okay, fine, you're telling me to do A, B, and C, I'm very upset with you right now. I don't have the right wing functioning.
I have problems with the right wing.
Yes, that's right. Then I have to activate the left wing. And hopefully the left wing will then force the right wing to activate itself too, and slowly but surely I'll ascend. But that's really what these two wings are referring to. So there's tremendous love and passion and fervor on the one side, but there's also tremendous reverence and respect and do it anyway type of approach on the left side. With those two, we fly. With those two, we really ascend, and those two, we become one with God. Um, So that's what this is saying. And that's really the achievement of the Benoni is that he's able to fly all the time. Why? To become one with God all the time. Why? Because he knows that it's about both love and respect, not just one. You know, it's interesting because I just to go a little bit deeper into this, the and it's very much connected to the portions of the week. In fact, what Moses tells us that we'll be exiled and then we'll lose connection with God. And very often, and people know that on the most basic level. For example, if you're exercising, you go to the gym every day, and there are days where you don't want to go, but you keep going at it, keep going at it. Eventually, the desire is reborn. And in many ways, that's the way to deal with exile. We spoke about being upset with God, and there's many reasons to be upset with God. And um, you know, Judaism allows us to be upset with God. It allows us to protest and to say to God, it's enough, especially when terrible things happen, like they happen in Israel these days, or other things. So we're allowed to protest, but at the same time, it doesn't, that emotion shouldn't paralyze the action, as human nature usually tells you to do. And that's the difference here. Very often, we allow emotions to numb us or to paralyze us, to stop us from doing things. And yeah, there's a beautiful thing happening in the ultimate relationship with God. And that is that I can be upset with God, but I'll still be devoted with God. It's almost like Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev, one of the great Hasidic masters, said, I can be with God, I can be against God, but I can't be without God. I can be for God, I can be against God, but I can't be without God. Even though I'm upset, I'm still devoted. I'm still dedicated. We see that with Moses himself. And when Moses is about to leave us, he tells the Jewish people the same thing. You'll be exiled. That's fine. You'll be upset. But still stay connected because emotions can't overcome actions. It's always the other way around in Judaism. Actions have to overcome emotions, regardless how legitimate they may be. And that's really the ultimate Benoni. That's who the Benoni is. He doesn't allow the emotions to overcome his actions. It's the opposite by him. Okay, let's continue again. Unless there's more, please, more ideas to share, more comments, more disagreements, more questions, more stories, whatever it may be. Okay,
Okay. As
top of
explained,
72. Yeah.
Okay, as explained, the Benoni's architecture limits him from having a direct and complete spiritual experience. Yet, even with his reduced abilities, his achievements need not be inferior to those of the tzaddik. It is easier for the tzaddik to be sure, and avenues and methods are open to him that are forever unattainable by a Benoni. But the latter, by virtue of his service and his endless effort, brings about a spiritual tour de force and attachment to God equal to that of a tzaddik. The Benoni's constructs are different, perhaps less elegant, but they too possess beauty and holiness, although of a different nature. The unique virtue of his service lies in his very limitations. Notwithstanding them, he serves God. For that reason, the Benoni must not invest himself in matters that do not present a challenge. He must not rely on habit or routine. He must arouse his heart's and mind's understanding at all times, delving deeply, for even when he cannot perceive things directly, He can ponder them in the hidden recesses of his heart, on a level parallel to that attainable by the tzaddik.
Right. And that's the main difference between the Beinoni and the Tzaddik. In many ways, they are the same when we look at the result. The journey to the result is very different. So the Tzaddik and the Beinoni both achieve oneness with God. They both do what's right. But the Beinoni, sometimes his journey is much more complicated. The Tzaddik, on the one hand, is on cruise control. He doesn't have issues with his emotions. He's completely on a different level. He's almost robotic in that sense. But the Benoni has many, many fluctuations and inclinations, and he's deeply torn sometimes, and his emotional makeshift as well as intellectual makeshift sometimes is very, very diverse and pulls in many different directions. Yet he doesn't allow that to, again, stop the results. So on the most external level, they are the same, Beinon and Tzaddik. The journey on an internal level, they're very, very much different. But I would say that in many ways, this is also what makes the Beinoni on some levels higher than the Tzaddik. Tzaddik doesn't have inclinations to overcome. He's a Tzaddik. He's one. He's wholesome, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, on every level. The Beinoni does. And when you have a hardship and you nevertheless overcome it, that's when you really are owed a medal, so to speak. That's when you really achieve the greatness that the tzaddik can't achieve because he doesn't have those challenges. You know, if it doesn't, they say, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. Well, the Beinoni is challenged all the time, but that's why he's so changed and he's so elevated. The tzaddik is not. He doesn't have those issues. So there's an advantage to the Beinoni here over the tzaddik, who's supposed to be on the highest level, but still, because of the challenges, he's changed more than the tzaddik himself. I think that's the beauty of the Beinoni, and that's why we should never despair. It's specifically those challenges that make us, and they make us in many ways higher than the tzaddik himself. Even though maybe on a very simplistic and external level, on the result level, we're the same, but still, because of the journey, we're higher than the tzaddik. That's really what the Beinoni achieves that the tzaddik cannot achieve. This is also why, there's an interesting line in the Talmud, and it's mentioned in so many other places that bimkom shebaalei tshuva omdim en tzadikim gmurim yecholim la'amod bo. That where people who do teshuvah, who repent, who return, repent is the wrong word. People who return, stand. Even the complete tzaddik cannot stand. Now, why? Because a person who's returned is a person whose challenges have lifted him so high that he's now on a higher level than the tzaddik, as we've just explained, even the complete tzaddik. And that's really due to the challenges. So we shouldn't allow the challenges to create any sorts of despair or to pull us down. The opposite. We should embrace the challenge, because it's what makes us go even higher than the tzaddik. It's what lifts us up. These challenges are as positive as could be, as hard as they can be. But in essence, they're as positive as they could be because they lift us up. So that's the idea here. It reminds me, and I know I've shared this story, but about this young teenager who was struggling with all sorts of things, and he went to the late Lubavitcher Rebbe and he shared his struggles with him. And the Rebbe said, "Can I ask you a question? Why is it that a picture is sold for $1 while a painting can be sold for thousands of dollars? A painting maybe even of the same exact scenery." And the teenager said, "I don't know." And the Rebbe said, "I'll tell you why. Because a picture is robotic. It's a click of the camera. While a painting involves all of the emotions, all of the dilemmas, all of the fluctuations of the soul of the painter. And that's why it's so valuable. That's where the value hides." And he says, same with you. You're having many struggles, but that's what is turning your life into a beautiful painting. And that's why it's so valuable. If you wanted a picture, fine. You want a picture perfect life, then your value will only be $1. But it's specifically those challenges that increase our values. And That's who the Benoni is.